Thank you for your talk, Jennifer. I want to talk a little bit about what Jennifer was talking about. So the poem by Mumon is, words cannot speak truth. Speech cannot point into nature. One who holds words is dead. One who attaches to sentences is lost. And as Jennifer pointed out, this is a contradiction because it's language, talking about how language doesn't quite work. And the way I like to think of it is there's the real world and there's the language world, and they don't quite touch. And if we live in the language world, then we have a real problem, because then we're not in the real world. There's this movie, I think it's Fitzcarraldo, is the one where the guy goes to the jungle, and nod your head if you know what I'm talking about. And yeah, so this guy goes to the jungle, and he's got his beautiful daughter, and this is in like the Amazon, and he's going to build some kind of weird, this is like, 18th, 17th century, something like that. He's going to build this weird, like, Western European type thing in the middle of the jungle and exploit the natives and everything like that. And of course, the indigenous people are just picking them off, with their, blow guns with poison on them and their poison tipped arrows. And at one point, Fitzcarraldo, is it Fitzcarraldo? Is that the name of the boat, or the guy? Whoever, the guy is like standing on the boat. His daughter's dying next to him. His beautiful teenage daughter is dying next to him, and all these dead people around him. And he's convincing himself that this isn't actually what's happening, that he's actually going to manage to do whatever it is that he was going to do. I saw this with an old boyfriend of mine who was a physicist who didn't understand that the director, I think, was it Werner Herzog, was like a major guy. And so my friend thought it was like a comedy, and he kept laughing during it, and everyone's looking at him like, this is a serious movie. But it is kind of funny. So that's when we're living in a language world, we're like that guy. We're like trying to convince ourselves of all kinds of things that, maybe they're true, maybe they're not true, but we don't know because, we're not touching this. So Zen practice is about touching this. And then language is a tool. It's a tool we use in 1,000 different ways. I'm not going to begin to say how we use it because there's so many ways we use language. And so language is this extraordinarily useful tool, and it's also an extraordinarily seductive tool. And we get seduced into thinking that this world that we build by our language and our thinking, that this is the world as it actually is, but it's not. And so Zen is about touching the real world, the world as it is. That's what our practice is pointing to. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about not for me. Rusty says, Aguirre, the wrath of God. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. I can never get my German film straight. Okay. Yeah, so this not for me, this is, we don't have to check every moment. Is eating this ice cream right now, I really like chocolate ice cream, and I'm eating chocolate ice cream, and is this truly not for me? Should I not eat this chocolate? No, that's not for me is a direction. And the direction means that our life is not about ourselves. And it's not only that it's not about satisfying our desires, that's just a small part of it. It's that our life is not this little tiny thing, called Judy going through the world, who in her life encounters, I'm reading across my screen, Ramiro and Jonathan and Stan and Vivian and Jennifer and Sabrina and so on. And there were also these little tiny things, and sometimes we bump into each other, and sometimes we embrace each other. And right now we're not doing any of that except through screens. That's not what our lives are. It's not about me moving through this world. It's about this encompassing universe that we're part of. And to open to that encompassing universe. And when we open to that, then we open to the others around us. And our life is not about satisfying ourselves. Our life is about reaching out to others. The way underground roots of trees and flowers and the whole mycosphere of all these fungi reach out to each other and become entwined in each other. You know, we've been doing a lot of weeding, and grass seeds somehow got into our huge vinca patch, and we're always trying to dig up the grass from the vinca, but you know, the grass roots are entwined with the vinca vines, and it's really hard to do. And that's what our lives are. We're just completely entwined. So that not for me is pointing to that entwinement, that connection, that deep interpenetration that we have of each other. And that our lives are not about my attaining enlightenment. Our lives are about together, completely together, working for each other, which right now, you know, we really have to manifest that. It's not about, I want a beer, I want to go to the bar. It's about, I want to protect you, and you need to protect me, and we need to protect each other. That's what our lives are right now. And if we lose sight of that, we're going to cause terrible, terrible suffering. So anyway, end of politics. Also, I want to say all poetry is Zen poetry and no poetry is Zen poetry. I just have to say that. You know, and Jennifer knew I was going to say that, so I said it.
I've been thinking about not for me, and also the fact that you and I are not two. So then there's no me, right?
There's no what? Me?
So what does not for me mean then, if you and I are not two?
That's what it means. Okay. It also means, it's your main instrument violin or viola?
Violin.
Yeah, so when you play the violin, play it really well. Okay? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy, it's Don. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I see you too.
I think this was from last week. I'm trying to remember it. I think you said something to the effect of we are not here. The universe is not here for us. We are here for the universe. Do you happen to recall that?
I said something like that, I think, yeah.
Oh, I was just wondering if you could expand on that a little bit. That intrigued me deeply.
Well, that's what it's basically what we just said. And I'm going to mute you now again. It's basically what we just said. It's not two. You know, the direction of my life is not about this. You know, the old masters used to call this the skin bag. It's not about what's inside the skin bag and the skull bag. So it's this whole thing together. And that's the direction of our lives, this whole thing together. And we're just a little manifestation of it. And, you know, I've done this before. You know, you have the 4 fingers of your hand and you think, oh, look at these 4 little sausages up there, you know. But no, they're not separate. You know, they look separate, but they're not separate. So it's like that. Okay?
I've been thinking about like we're supposed to be in the moment, and I've been thinking about what a moment actually is, because in a certain type of therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, you're supposed to be in the moment, and they talk about 17-second moments. And after 17 seconds, that moment is over and things change. Your thoughts and stuff change. So that is how they define a moment. And when you guys talk, you talk about how this moment is over by the time I finish this sentence. So I'm just wondering, if there's any way to really even define a moment.
That's a wonderful question. And I want to say that I have tremendous respect for dialectical behavioral therapy and its cousins. There are a number, they start with dialectical, they end with therapy, and then the middle word changes. And I have tremendous respect for it. So yeah, so language isn't very accurate, is it? So we have this word moment, and this word moment means very different things. So actually in classical Buddhist psychology, perceptual psychology, in the Abhidharma, they have a definition of moment, and it's something like 1 billion. I mean, we would translate it. I don't think they had our concept of second, but we would translate it something like 1/billionth of a second or 1 millionth of a second, or maybe 1/648,238 of a second or something like that. This little, really fast. And then, so they're saying 17 seconds, not 1/17th of a second, but 17 seconds. Just nod your head yes or no. Yeah. So 17, that seems to me very long for a moment. I mean, we wash our hands for 20 seconds. So
That's how long they say, because if you're fixating on a certain thought,
yeah,
then 17 seconds, it'll be gone and something else will be there. So
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I don't know, when I fixate on my thoughts, they go on for hours, but anyway, okay. So yeah, so we have this word moment, and it obviously means radically different things. I mean, 17 seconds is almost as long as you're supposed to wash your hands these days, and we all know that's a long time. And then 1/5,738,456 of a second, that's a very short time. So so this notion of moment, and then we have these things like, be in the moment, be here now, that's very interesting. So moment is very interesting, and their moment is their moment, and moment in ancient Theravada Buddhism, Abhidharma, is another moment, and it's the same word being used in two different ways. But your real question is, what is the present? What is now? What does now mean? And Zoom is a really good explanation of why that actually doesn't make sense. The notion of now. And if you ever have tried to sing or recite anything in unison on Zoom, you understand that Jennifer's moment and my moment and Sabrina's moment and Ting's moment are not the same moment. There's a reason why only one person is unmuted when we're reciting or chanting, because there's a process, an electronic process that has to happen. It's not even electronic, it's, subatomic. I don't know what it is. However computers work, there's this process that is happening, and it's not simultaneous, and it's never simultaneous. And there's a wonderful, even when we think we're together, we're not really together. And then this wonderful book by Carlo Rovelli, I think his name is, and it's called The Order of Time. And it makes it really clear that time is not what we think it is, but this is not news, because St. Augustine knew this also, and wrote a book or an essay or something about it for different reasons. So time is not what we think it is. But what this saying that drives me crazy, be here now, it always drives me crazy. Like, what's here, what's now, what, come on. Or, moment by moment, that doesn't drive me quite as crazy. My teacher said it all the time, but this moment by moment. What that's saying is the mental projections into the past and into the future that we're always making. And we live in this universe of our mental projection of the past and our mental projection of the future. And the reason I say our mental projection of the past is none of us remembers the past the way it actually happened. I mean, Stan and I will sometimes be talking about, like some party that happened a long time ago, and so said such and such. And they'll say, oh yeah, it was at Joe's house. And Stan will say, no, it was at Mary's house. There we are. We have this like really strong memory. Both of us have this strong memory, but we can't remember what house it took place in, So our minds, they don't record things, the way Zoom is recording things with total lack of choice. Our minds are constantly making up stories and calling those stories memories. So the past is just our idea of the past, and the future, we don't know. Who in December, when we were having our invitation to the neighbors, and we had like 30 or 40 neighbors come in and check out the new Zen Center. February 2nd, we had our big grand opening ceremony. We had 50 people there. Who knew that in 6 weeks the Zen Center would be shut down? We had no idea. We just didn't know. And the New York Times today published, I guess it was the names of everyone they could find who had died of COVID. Maybe it was in New York. I forget what it is, but it's really sobering. They just have this list of names, and every now and then a small description, like loved pancakes for breakfast or something like that. And this list of names, and not one of those people had any idea, nor did their loved ones have any idea that these people would have been dead in this pandemic back in January or December or even early February. Nobody had any idea. So we have no idea of the future. That's just a fact. We all have a sort of an idea, I'm going to finish this talk in about 5 minutes, and then we're going to go into little breakout rooms, then we're all going to go eat lunch or wherever we are in this universe. Some of us may be like in another time zone, but basically that's our idea of the future, and locally that usually happens, but not always. Like Zen Master Subong, he's giving an interview, a Kongan interview to a 12-year-old girl, and all of a sudden, poof, he falls over with a massive heart attack. Boom, he's dead. Boom, like that. Nobody could have predicted that. So the past is just our reconstruction, and it's never accurate. And the future is our dream, because it hasn't happened yet. And so what all of that stuff, this moment language, this now language, what it's pointing to is our life. And you have to get circular. Our life right now. That's what it's pointing to. So the screen that I'm looking at, and suddenly somebody moves ahead and scratches. That's what's going on right now, whatever now means. My own personal experience of now, when I look at it really closely, is that it's not a pinpoint, that it kind of has it's like a fuzzy little kind of interval. You're not sure where it starts, you're not sure where it ends, but it's not like a point. It's more like a little tiny interval of now. That's my personal experience of it. I'm not going to try to defend it in a psychology, exam or in a physics exam, but that's my personal experience of now. It has this kind of fuzziness about it. But the thing the stories that we've made up, that we call our past, and the stories that we make up that we think will be our future, that's not what it is. It's when we give up those stories, that's what now is. So moment is being used in a certain way in DBT, and it's very helpful to a lot of people. I think it's a fabulous technique. I know a lot of people who've been helped by it. And moment is used in, the very meticulous investigation of the mind and how it constructs the universe of the Abhidharma in another way, and it just happens to be the same word. We spell it the same way, we pronounce it the same way, but the meanings are different, and there's no need to reconcile them. But I try to be here now, whatever that means. So thank you very much for your question.
So you are a great poet yourself, and you often never remember what you wrote.
Who are you talking to when you say
you?
Me?
Yes.
I write poetry.
Yes. So
you happen to like, so that makes me.
So there is a line that I love, and it says, I like it so much it's on my Facebook where the story is. it says, basically it's just one line, thought, no wing.
Really? I wrote
Yes.
that?
Yes.
I have no idea.
I find it very inspirational for this practice. Can you say something about it?
No, because I don't remember it. Is it?
It doesn't matter.
Well, let me ask you something. Is it thought and then
No wing,
no wing, like a bird's wings?
like a wing, blowing wind.
A wind. Thought, no wind. I don't know what to say about that. I have a terrible memory, and especially from
I know you're going to say that, but I find it's extremely
I don't-
inspirational for
well,
this
I-
practice.
Okay, I don't know what I was doing when I wrote that. Let me mute you. I don't know what I was doing when I wrote that. But it brings up something that actually sort of goes against that, sort of contradicts it, which is that our thoughts just drift in and out. So our thoughts are more like a leaf in the wind than they are like when there's no wind. Because, you know, like Sabrina was saying, our thoughts come and they go, and they're not who we actually are. And someone wrote me a letter yesterday asking all these questions, and one of the questions was about the word demon. And was this an Asian concept? And how do we, as those of us who are, you know, supposedly Westerners, how do we reconcile ourselves with the notion of demons? And what I responded is that I thought that demon was a tremendously helpful concept, and that many cultures have this notion of a demon. So instead of saying I am anxious, it's like anxiety is just a temporary thing that you are experiencing. You know, the anxiety demon has, you know, has hit you and is in your mind, but the anxiety demon will eventually leave you. So thoughts no wind. I don't know the context, so I don't know what that is, but I think thinking of thoughts as wind itself and just it's gone, you know, that's really helpful. So that's all I want to say about that. So thank you for your question. And now unmute Carol and you get to ask your question.
Thank you. So this is a little vague, but I've been finding myself very more or less tied to the material plane in this time of pandemic. Like, you know, we're afraid to touch things and afraid to touch other people, and thinking how we can help other people and what other people need, and paying attention to my breathing, you know, a lot. And I wonder what advice you have for me to kind of get more in touch with something I used to be more in touch with, which is that the people that I'm thinking about, they don't exist in the way I think about them. You know, they're really empty. Everybody here who is suffering or not suffering or going out or not going out, and I'm concerned about all this, they're really empty, you know, the same way I am. And to try to keep myself in a more, I don't know, not such a tied down material kind of playing, but thinking of more of that we don't know. Like you said, language is not tied to the real world. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice for me on that.
So don't be afraid to touch things. Just don't touch things. Okay? And so emptiness does not mean non-existence. So in the Heart Sutra, we say form is emptiness, emptiness is form. So it's not that emptiness means that people don't exist, that you don't exist, that your friends that you're concerned about don't exist. Emptiness is what allows us to exist. Our existence is the manifestation of emptiness. Emptiness is what allows us to interact, to think about each other, to care for each other. So it's not a way to, it's like contemplation of emptiness is not a way to sort of anesthetize yourself from feelings. if anything, if you really perceive emptiness, then your feelings can really be completely felt and then let go of. Our problem is we keep our feelings down. We try to suppress them, and we don't really allow ourselves to experience them. And then, we're suppressing them all the time. But if you just can really completely experience them, then they vanish. They're done. They've done their job, So being in touch with, this world, it means really opening your mind completely, not getting caught up in labels and things like that, language and thinking, just really opening your mind completely.